The maintenance deck of Station Keras 9 smelled like metal and recycled air, but today there was something else. Something that made even the hardened Vrax workers cover their breathing tubes as they hurried past Bay 47. The smell had been there for decades, maybe centuries, but today it seemed worse than ever. Deep inside Bay 47, behind reinforced walls designed to contain the most dangerous cargo in the galaxy, something massive stirred. The creature had no proper name in any language. Most species simply called it the Beast or the White One, or more commonly, that thing we don't talk about. Official records listed it as Specimen X447, but even the bureaucrats who wrote those records did so from very far away. The beast measured 40 meters from its blunt head to the tip of its thick tail. Its skin, or what could be seen of it beneath 2,000 years of accumulated filth, was supposedly pure white. Albino, the ancient records said, but nobody alive had actually seen that white skin. What they saw instead was a mountain of matted fur, crusted waste, and layers upon layers of grime that had hardened into something resembling stone. The creature had been found drifting in a derelict ship near the edge of the Kronos sector. That was 2,000 years ago. During the early days of the Galactic Council, the ship had no identification, no logs, nothing to explain where it came from or why a single massive creature occupied an entire cargo hold. The Council scientists studied it from a distance, determined it was non-sapient, categorized it as a biological curiosity, and then promptly forgot about it. Almost forgot about it. The problem was that the beast was nearly impossible to kill. Energy weapons bounced off its hide. Projectiles couldn't penetrate deep enough to matter. Poisons did nothing. Vacuum exposure just made it sleep. After several failed attempts to dispose of it humanely, the Council made a decision. They would keep it alive, maintain it at minimal cost, and store it in the most remote station they could find. That station was Keras 9, a massive orbital facility that processed raw materials from the nearby asteroid belt. The beast lived in Bay 47, a cargo hold that had been converted into a containment cell. Automated systems delivered food twice a day. Automated systems monitored its vital signs. Automated systems did everything except the one thing that was desperately needed. Nobody wanted to clean it. The Council had tried, of course. In the beginning, they sent specialized teams. The Vrax, with their flexible exoskeletons and multiple manipulator arms, seemed perfect for the job. They lasted 3 hours before their sensitive olfactory organs shut down completely. One team member had to be hospitalized for sensory trauma. The Kelthans, who had no sense of smell at all, volunteered next. They lasted longer, almost a full day, before the sheer physical revulsion of touching the creature's filthy hide proved too much. One Kelthan worker described it as, like grabbing a corpse that's been rotting for 1,000 years, except the corpse is still alive and moves under your hands. The Council tried robots next. Remote-operated drones, automated scrubbers, even specialized biocleaning units designed to process organic waste. The beast destroyed them all, not out of malice but simply by existing. Its hide was too tough, its body too massive, and the accumulated filth too deeply embedded for any automated system to handle. After 500 years of failures, the Council gave up. They declared the beast a lost cause, lowered its priority to the absolute minimum, and instructed station personnel to simply keep it alive and ignore everything else. Bay 47 became a forbidden zone. New workers were warned never to open the inner doors. The smell was warning enough, but keeping a 40-meter creature alive wasn't cheap even with minimal care. The food costs alone ran into millions of credits per year. The containment systems required constant maintenance. And worst of all, the smell was beginning to affect the entire station. Air filtration systems struggled to keep up. Workers complained. Productivity dropped. Station Commander Zeloth, a 6-armed Vrax with 4 decades of experience, had heard every complaint, read every report, and reviewed every failed attempt to resolve the situation. She sat in her office, her manipulator arms sorting through digital files while her primary arms massaged the headache building behind her compound eyes. 2,000 years, she muttered to her assistant. A young Kelthan named Rix. For 2,000 years, nobody has successfully bathed this creature. It's becoming a station-wide crisis. Rix nodded, his scaled head bobbing. The smell is now detectable in sections 12 through 18. Workers are requesting transfers. Some are threatening to quit. Xyloth made a clicking sound of frustration. We can't move it. We can't kill it. We can't clean it. What are we supposed to do? The council is sending someone, Rick said carefully. New personnel. Apparently there's been a change in galactic labor agreements. They're bringing in workers from some of the newer member species. Oh, wonderful, Xyloth said. Fresh blood that doesn't know any better. They'll take one look at Bay 47 and run screaming like everyone else. Actually, Commander, the new crew chief specifically requested assignment to Bay 47 after reading about the situation. Xyloth's compound eyes focused sharply on her assistant. Requested it? What kind of insane species request to work with the beast? Rix checked his datapad. They're called humans. They're from a planet in the Sol system, recently admitted to the council. Apparently they have experience with something called animal husbandry. Animal husbandry? Xyloth repeated the unfamiliar term. What does that mean? The translation is unclear, but it seems to involve caring for non-sapient creatures. The human who requested this assignment has 20 years of experience working with what they call large livestock. Xyloth leaned back in her chair, all 6 arms folding in skepticism. Every species thinks they can handle the beast until they actually see it. These humans will be no different. Perhaps, Rix agreed, but they arrive tomorrow. A small team, 5 individuals total, led by someone called Jake Morrison, who holds the title of Foreman. The commander pulled up the crew manifest on her primary screen. 5 humans, all listed with impressive credentials in fields she didn't fully understand. Agricultural management, veterinary medicine, industrial cleaning operations. None of it seemed relevant to the nightmare in Bay 47. Fine, she said finally, but I want standard protocol. Show them the observation room first. Let them see what they're dealing with through the reinforced windows. Most species change their minds at that point. And if they don't change their minds? Xyloth made a whistling sound through her breathing tubes. Then we'll find out just how tough these humans really are. The next morning, as Jake Morrison's transport approached Karis 9, he stood at the viewing port and watched the massive station grow larger. He'd seen the classified files, read the warnings, and studied every failed attempt to clean the creature in Bay 47. His team back on Earth had laughed when he volunteered for this assignment. You're going to clean a space. A monster that hasn't had a bath in 2,000 years? His brother had asked. Are you insane? Jake had just smiled. He'd grown up on a cattle ranch in Montana. He'd worked with animals his whole life, from skittish horses to ornery bulls. He'd cleaned infected wounds, treated sick livestock, and once spent an entire week helping to rescue a cow that had gotten stuck in a ravine. The size didn't scare him. The smell didn't scare him. The warnings from alien species who'd never worked a day on a farm didn't scare him. He cracked his knuckles and grinned at his reflection in the viewport. Let's see what all the fuss is about. The docking process took 20 minutes, and Jake Morrison used every second to brief his team one final time. Maria Chen, his second in command and a veterinarian with 15 years of experience with exotic animals, sat across from him reviewing diagrams on her tablet. Next to her, Tommy Walsh, a former industrial cleaner who'd worked oil rigs and disaster sites, cracked his neck and adjusted his work gloves. Sarah Kim, their medical specialist, was double-checking her equipment for the 3rd time, while old Frank Davies, who'd been a ranch hand for 40 years before joining the space program, just sat quietly with his eyes closed, breathing steadily. Remember, Jake said, this isn't about being heroes, this is about doing a job that needs doing. We take it slow, we take it safe, and we don't take unnecessary risks. Jake, Maria said without looking up from her tablet. According to these reports, 17 different species have tried this over 2 millennia. Every single one failed. Some ended up hospitalized. That's because they approached it wrong, Jake replied. They sent in technicians and scientists. They used robots and chemicals. Nobody thought to just treat it like what it is. And what's that? Tommy asked. A scared, dirty animal that needs help. The docking clamp connected with a solid thunk. A green light appeared over the airlock door. Jake stood up, straightened his work jumpsuit, and led his team into Karis 9. Station Commander Xyloth was waiting. For them in the reception area, all 6 of her arms crossed in what Jake recognized from his cultural briefing as a posture of deep skepticism. 2 of her eyes focused on Jake while the others scanned his team. You're the humans, she stated flatly. Yes, ma'am. Jake extended his hand, realized the gesture meant nothing to her, and converted it into a slight bow instead. Jake Morrison, Foreman. This is my team. Xyloth's breathing tubes fluttered. I've read your file, Foreman Morrison. Impressive credentials for working with domesticated creatures on your homeworld. But what's in Bay 47 is not a cow or a horse or whatever animals you're familiar with. No, ma'am, Jake agreed. But the principles are the same. Scared animals act in predictable ways regardless of size or species. Scared? Xyloth's tone suggested she found the word amusing. The beast isn't scared, Foreman. It's simply existing. In its own filth because it's too stubborn or too stupid to cooperate with cleaning attempts. Jake said nothing, but Maria stepped forward. Commander, I've reviewed the medical scans in the file. The creature shows elevated stress hormones, irregular heart rhythms, and several signs of chronic discomfort. It's in pain, and it's been in pain for a very long time. Xyloth's eyes refocused on Maria. You can determine that from scans taken through reinforced walls? I can determine that from 40 years of collective veterinary experience across my team, Maria said firmly. The beast isn't uncooperative. It's suffering. For a long moment, the station commander said nothing. Then she gestured with two of her arms. Follow me. I'll take you to the observation room. After you see what you're dealing with, we can discuss whether you still want this assignment. They walked through the station's corridors, passing workers from a dozen different species. Jake noticed how they all gave the group strange looks, some curious, some pitying. One Vrax worker actually whispered something to his companion that made them both laugh. They're betting on how long we'll last, Frank said quietly. Probably, Jake agreed. Let them bet. The observation room was a long chamber with a thick, transparent wall looking into Bay 47. Xyloth led them inside, and the moment the door sealed, behind them, Jake understood why so many species had failed. The smell hit first. Even through the station's filtration systems, even through the sealed observation room, the odor was overwhelming. It wasn't just waste or decay. It was 2,000 years of accumulated neglect, concentrated into a single space. Tommy actually gagged. Sarah's eyes watered. Even Frank, who'd cleaned out barns in the middle of summer heat, took a step back. That's through reinforced walls and 3 layers of air filtration, Xyloth said. Imagine being in there with it. But Jake wasn't focused on the smell. He was focused on the creature beyond the transparent wall. It was massive, even larger than the specs had suggested. The body was vaguely reptilian, with thick limbs ending in blunt claws and a tail that seemed to have partially fused with the accumulated filth on the floor. The head was broad and flat, with small eyes that barely opened. Most of the body was hidden under what looked like a mountain of hardened waste material, matted fur, and layers of grime that had turned into a crusty shell. But Jake saw beyond all that. He saw the way the creature's breathing was labored, each breath causing its entire body to shudder. He saw the way it held its left rear leg at an odd angle, favoring it. He saw the patches where the filth had been rubbed away, revealing raw, inflamed skin underneath. Jesus, Maria whispered. How is it still alive? It has an extremely robust constitution, Xyloth replied. One of the reasons the council couldn't simply dispose of it. Nothing we tried could kill it, so we just stopped trying. Jake walked closer to the transparent wall. The creature's small eye opened slightly, tracking his movement. For just a moment their eyes met. What do you see, Foreman? Xyloth asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. I see a patient that's been neglected for 2,000 years. Jake said quietly. I see infected wounds, probable parasites, muscle atrophy from lack of movement, and psychological trauma from prolonged isolation. I see an animal that's given up hope that anything will ever change. And you think you can fix that? Jake turned to face the commander. I think we can try, but I need some things first. Xyloth's arms unfolded slightly. Such as? Full access to Bay 47, obviously. Industrial water supply, as much as we can get. A cargo container full of cleaning supplies from Earth, which should arrive on the next transport. medical equipment suitable for treating large animals, and time. Lots of time. The council approved a trial period of 30 days, Xyloth said. If you show no progress in that time, they'll reassign you. 30 days to undo 2,000 years of neglect? Maria shook her head. That's not realistic. That's what's approved, Xyloth stated firmly. Take it or refuse the assignment. Jake looked at his team. Tommy had recovered from his initial reaction and was studying the space with a professional eye. Sarah was already taking notes. Frank was watching the creature with the calm patience that came from decades of working with difficult animals. Maria met his eyes and gave a slight nod. We'll take it, Jake said. Xyloth's breathing tubes fluttered in what might have been amusement. Very well. I'll have my assistant provide you with access codes and safety equipment. The inner door to Bay 47 requires 3 separate authorizations to open. Once you're inside, the automated systems will seal the door behind you until you manually request exit. Understood. One more thing, Foreman Morrison. Xyloth fixed all of her eyes on him. In 2,000 years, no one has successfully entered that chamber and remained for more than a few hours. The Vrax team managed 3 hours. The Kelthans lasted almost a full day. How long do you think humans will last? Jake turned back to look at the creature through the transparent wall. It had closed its eye again, its massive body rising and falling with each labored breath. Suffering in silence because that's all it had known for millennia, as long as it takes, he said simply. That evening, Jake and his team set up their base of operations in a small room adjacent to Bay 47. They reviewed the creature's vital signs, studied the chamber layout, and planned their approach. The supply, container from Earth, wouldn't arrive for another 2 days. But Jake wanted to make an initial entry tomorrow. We're really doing this, Tommy said, spreading out equipment lists on the table. We're going to walk into that hell chamber and try to clean a monster that's covered in 2,000 years of shit. That's the job, Jake confirmed. And if it attacks us? Then we retreat and reassess, Maria said. But I don't think it will. Look at these readings. Its aggression markers are almost non-existent. It's not violent, it's just broken. Sarah finished updating her medical database. I've been studying the failed attempts. Every species approached it with fear or disgust. They used restraints, sedatives, and force. They treated it like a dangerous object to be contained. And we're going to treat it like what? Frank asked, speaking for the first time in hours. Jake pulled up an image of the creature on his display. Like a patient that needs care, like an animal that deserves dignity, like something that's been waiting 2,000 years for someone to show it a little kindness. The room fell quiet. Outside their window, the massive bulk of Keras 9 rotated slowly against the starfield. Somewhere in the station's depths in Bay 47, the beast lay in its prison of accumulated filth. Tomorrow that would change. Tomorrow, a human foreman and his team would do what an entire galaxy had given up on. They would try. Jake Morrison woke at 5 in the morning, station time, though his body still thought it was somewhere around midnight Earth time. He didn't care. Sleep would come when the work was done. He dressed in his work clothes, checked his equipment, and headed to the team's ready room. The others were already there. Couldn't sleep either, Maria asked, nursing a cup of something that looked like coffee but definitely wasn't. Slept fine, Jake lied. Everyone ready? They'd spent the previous evening designing their approach. No robots, no restraints, no sedatives. They would enter Bay 47 with nothing but basic cleaning tools, protective gear, and patience. The first day wasn't about making progress. It was about introduction, about letting the beast know they weren't there to hurt it. I still think we're insane, Tommy said, but he was already pulling on his protective suit, walking into that chamber with nothing but some brushes and a prayer. We have more than that, Sarah corrected. She held up a device that looked like a modified medical scanner. I've adapted this to monitor the creature's stress levels in real time. If we're causing it distress, we'll know immediately. Frank finished checking his boots and stood. At 62, he was the oldest member of the team, but he moved with the steady confidence of someone who'd spent his life working with unpredictable animals. Back home, I once spent 3 weeks earning the trust of a bull that had been abused by its previous owner. Mean son of a bitch that'd charge anyone who came near. Know what finally worked? What? Jake asked, just sitting with him, not trying to do anything, not pushing, just being there day after day until he realized I wasn't a threat. Frank adjusted his gloves. This ain't much different, just bigger. Commander Zyloth met them outside Bay 47, accompanied by a medical team and 3 security officers. Her expression was unreadable, but Jake noticed that all 6 of her arms were tensed. Last chance to reconsider, she said. We're good, Commander, Jake replied. Zyloth gestured to one of her security officers who approached a control panel. The inner door requires 3 separate authorizations. Mine, yours as team leader, and the station's AI safety override. Once all 3 are entered, you'll have 60 seconds to enter before the door seals. How long until we can request exit?
Minimum of 30 minutes.
The safety protocols require time to cycle the air and decontaminate the door mechanisms. If there's an emergency, we can override, but it takes time. Jake nodded. Understood. We'll take our full 30 minutes for this first visit. The authorization process began. Zyloth entered her code. Jake entered his. The AI chimed confirmation. A red light above the massive door turned yellow, then green. Door opening in 60 seconds, the AI announced. Personnel entering Bay 47 are reminded that station medical services and emergency extraction may be delayed due to contamination protocols. Proceed with extreme caution. The massive door began to split open with a hiss of equalizing pressure. The smell that had been merely overwhelming through the walls became a physical presence. Tommy actually stumbled backward. Sarah pressed a cloth to her face. Even Frank's eyes watered, but Jake walked forward. Stay together, he said, nice and slow. They stepped through the door into Bay 47. The reality was worse than the observation room had suggested. The chamber was enormous, easily 200 meters long and 50 meters wide, with ceiling heights that reached 30 meters. It had once been a cargo bay, but now it looked like a toxic waste dump. The floor was covered in layers of hardened waste, old food remains, and discarded material. The air was thick and hot, heavy with moisture and decay. And in the center of it all, the beast. This close, its true size was terrifying. 40 meters long, with a body as wide as a small transport vehicle. Its head alone was the size of Jake's entire bedroom back on Earth. Through the layers of filth, he could see the suggestion of powerful muscles, of a creature built for strength and endurance. The door sealed behind them with a solid clunk. They were locked in. Easy, Jake murmured, more to his team than to the creature. Nobody move fast. Nobody make sudden noises. The beast's small eye cracked open, fixing on them. For a long moment, nothing happened. Jake could hear his own heartbeat, could feel sweat running down his back despite his protective suit. This was the moment when every previous team had broken, when fear and disgust had overcome training and determination. Jake took one slow step forward. The beast's eye tracked him, but it didn't move. Didn't show aggression, just watched with what Jake recognized as weary resignation. This creature had seen teams come before. It knew how this would end. They would try something painful, it would resist, and eventually they would leave. Except Jake wasn't going to try anything painful. He walked 10 meters closer, then slowly sat down on a relatively clean patch of floor. Just sat. Behind him, he heard Maria gasp slightly, but she didn't tell him to stop. The others spread out slightly, maintaining their positions but following Jake's lead and moving slowly and deliberately. For 5 minutes, Jake just sat there. The beast watched him. Jake watched back. He wasn't analyzing or planning. He was just being present, letting the creature get used to his presence. Jake. Maria's voice came through the comm system built into their suits. Its stress markers just dropped 15%. He didn't respond, didn't acknowledge. Just kept sitting. Another 5 minutes passed. The beast's eye closed halfway, though it clearly remained aware of them. Its breathing, which had been rapid when they first entered, was slowing to a more normal rhythm. 20% drop in stress, Maria reported. It's relaxing, Jake slowly stood. The beast's eye opened fully again, tracking him. He took another step forward, moving at the pace one might use approaching a nervous horse. Slow, calm, projecting peaceful intent with every movement. What I wouldn't give for an apple right now, Frank said quietly. Always worked wonders with horses. Actually, Sarah said, that's not a bad idea. The food it's being fed is nutritionally complete but completely bland. It's been eating the same processed pellets for 2,000 years. Make a note, Jake said, still focused on the beast. We'll request variety in its diet, but right now we're just introducing ourselves. He stopped 3 meters from the creature's head. This close, he could see details the observation room had hidden. The crust covering its body wasn't uniform. It was thickest on the back and sides, but thinner on the belly and around the joints. The creature's natural movements had kept some areas relatively cleaner, which told Jake something important. The beast wasn't completely given up. It was still trying to care for itself, at least a little. "Hello there," Jake said softly. He knew the creature probably couldn't understand words, but tone was universal among animals. "We're not here to hurt you. I know you've heard that before, probably from every team that's tried this, but we mean it." The beast's eye focused on him with surprising intensity. Jake had seen that look before, in abused animals back on Earth. It was the look of something that wanted to believe but didn't dare hope. "We're going to take this slow," Jake continued in that same soft tone. "Today we're just getting to know each other. No cleaning, no poking, no trying to force anything. Just being here with you." Behind him, Tommy had pulled out a scanner and was examining the chamber's infrastructure. "Boss, the water systems are still functional. Looks like they haven't been used in decades, but the pipes are sound." "We could get water flowing if needed, not today," Jake said. "Today we just sit," and that's what they did. For the remaining 20 minutes of their first session, the team simply existed in Bay 47 with the beast. They moved slowly around the chamber, never approaching too close, never making sudden movements. They took readings, made observations, and most importantly, they let the creature see that they weren't there to cause pain. When the 30-minute timer chimed, Jake spoke into his comm. "Commander, requesting door release." "Confirmed," Zeloth's voice came back. "You actually stayed the full 30 minutes. We said we would." The door process began, taking 3 minutes to cycle properly. When it finally opened, Jake and his team walked out covered in sweat but unharmed. The medical team immediately began scanning them for contaminants while Zeloth approached. "Well?" the commander asked. "What did you accomplish?" "Introduction," Jake said simply. "The beast knows we exist, knows we're not like the others who came before. You spent 30 minutes doing nothing? We spent 30 minutes showing a terrified creature that we're not a threat," Maria corrected. "And it worked. By the time we left, its stress markers were down 40% from baseline. That's more progress than any team has made in centuries." Zeloth's breathing tubes fluttered. "You do realize you need to actually clean it, not just sit with it." "We will," Jake assured her. "But you can't clean a creature that's fighting you every step of the way. First we build trust, then we work. And how long will this trust building take? As long as it needs to." Later that evening, Jake filed his first official report. It was short, simple, and probably disappointing to anyone expecting dramatic progress. But as he wrote it, he felt confident they were on the right path. Day 1 summary. Initial contact successful. Subject showed reduced stress response to human presence. No aggressive behavior observed. Team identified priority areas for eventual treatment. Recommendation: continue gradual. By day 7, the human team had established a routine that baffled every other species on Keras 9. They entered Bay 47 twice daily, staying for progressively longer periods. They still hadn't attempted any cleaning. They simply existed alongside the beast, moving quietly through the chamber, occasionally talking in soft voices, and gradually getting closer. Commander Zeloth watched from the observation room as Jake Morrison sat just 2 meters from the creature's massive head, eating his lunch. The beast watched him with what the commander had to admit looked like curiosity rather than aggression. "He's eating," Zeloth said to her assistant Rix. "The human is actually having a meal next to that thing." "They've been doing that since day 3, Rix confirmed. "All 5 humans take their meals in Bay 47 now. They call it social eating, and claim it helps build bonds with the creature." "That's insane." "Perhaps, but the medical readings don't lie. The beast's stress levels continue to drop. It's even begun moving more, adjusting its position when the humans are present. It hasn't done that in centuries." Zeloth's breathing tubes fluttered with grudging respect. "What are they planning for today?" "According to the schedule, today is first contact day. They're going to attempt to touch it." Inside Bay 47, Jake finished his sandwich and wiped his hands. "Everyone ready?" Maria checked her scanner one final time. "Stress markers are good. Heart rate is stable. I think we're ready." Frank, you're up first, Jake said. You've got the best touch. The old ranch hand nodded and slowly stood. He'd been sitting closest to the beast for the past 3 days, gradually moving nearer until he was close enough to reach out. Now he stood directly beside the creature's enormous front leg, covered in its crust of ancient filth. Easy now, Frank murmured, more to himself than anyone else. He raised one gloved hand, moving with infinite slowness. The beast's eye tracked the movement but showed no alarm. Frank's hand moved closer, closer, until finally his fingers made contact with the creature's hide. The reaction was immediate but not what anyone expected. The beast didn't flinch or pull away. Instead, it leaned slightly into the touch like a dog pressing against a hand it wanted to pet it more. Well, I'll be damned, Frank breathed. It wants contact. Poor thing's been touch-starved for 2,000 years. Maria's scanner chimed. Stress levels just dropped another 20%. Jake, it's producing oxytocin. It's experiencing pleasure from the touch. Jake felt something tighten in his chest. 2,000 years without gentle contact. 2,000 years of existence without a kind touch. What must that have been like? Sarah, Tommy, join Frank. Let's give this creature what it's been missing. The 3 team members positioned themselves around the beast's front section, each placing their hands on its filthy hide and applying gentle pressure. The beast made a sound, a deep rumbling that vibrated through the entire chamber. It wasn't aggressive. It was almost like a purr. I think it's happy, Tommy said, wonder in his voice. A 40-meter space monster is actually happy we're touching it. It's not a monster, Jake corrected gently. It's just an animal that needed someone to care. They spent an hour simply touching the beast, letting it experience positive contact. When they finally left Bay 47 that day, Jake saw something he hadn't seen before. The creature's eye followed them to the door, and he could have sworn it looked disappointed when they left. That night, the supply container from Earth finally arrived. Jake and his team spent hours unloading specialized equipment. Industrial brushes designed for cleaning elephants and rhinos, veterinary-grade shampoos and conditioners, specialized tools for removing compacted material, medical supplies for treating skin conditions, and one item that made Commander Zeloth question human sanity when she saw it on the manifest. 5,000 liters of apple-scented soap, she asked. Why? Enrichment, Maria explained. The beast has been experiencing nothing but unpleasant smells for millennia. We're going to give it something nice. You're going to make it smell like fruit. We're going to make it smell like something other than its own waste, Jake corrected. There's a difference. Day 8 began the actual cleaning process. Jake's team entered Bay 47 with their Earth equipment, moving slowly to avoid startling the beast. The creature watched them with clear interest, especially when they began setting up a water system connected to the station's supply. Starting with the extremities, Jake announced.
Frank, you take the left front leg.
Tommy, right front. Maria and Sarah, you're on medical monitoring. I'll handle the coordination. Frank approached the beast's front left leg with a bucket of warm water and a soft brush. Remember me, old friend? We're going to try something new today. It might feel strange, but I promise it'll feel better when we're done. He dipped the brush in water and applied it to a small patch of the creature's leg. The beast tensed slightly, and Maria's scanner immediately chimed a warning. Frank stopped, waiting. After a moment, the beast relaxed again. That's it, Frank murmured. Just water. Nothing scary. He began to brush gently, working the water into the compacted filth. It was slow work. The material had hardened over centuries into something resembling concrete, but gradually, with patient effort, small flakes began to come away. And underneath, they saw white, pure, clean, beautiful white skin. Oh my God, Sarah whispered. It really is albino. The white patch was small, maybe 10 centimeters across, but it was proof that underneath all the filth was the creature the ancient records had described. Jake felt a surge of hope. This could actually work. Keep going, he encouraged. Nice and slow. For 3 hours they worked. Frank and Tommy focused on the front legs, removing small sections of compacted material and revealing patches of clean white skin beneath. The beast remained calm throughout, occasionally shifting its weight but never showing aggression. If anything, it seemed fascinated by what they were doing, but the work was harder than Jake had anticipated. 2,000 years of accumulation meant the filth wasn't just surface level. It had worked its way into cracks around scales deep into the creature's fur. Each small section they cleaned took 30 minutes of careful work. When they finally left that day, they'd cleaned perhaps 1 square meter of the beast's total surface area. At this rate, it would take years to clean the entire creature. That night, Jake sat in his quarters doing math. 40 meters long, roughly cylindrical body averaging 3 meters in diameter, surface area of approximately 500 square meters. If they could clean 1 square meter per day, 500 days, Maria said, entering his room without knocking. I did the same calculation. We have 30 days approved, Jake said. After that, the council reevaluates. So we need to show dramatic progress. Maria sat down across from him. Jake, I know we're doing this right. Building trust, going slow, respecting the creature. But if we can't show results, then they'll pull us and send someone else. Someone who'll try, force, and fail just like all the others. Jake rubbed his eyes. We need to go faster without traumatizing the beast. How? I'm not sure yet. Let me think on it. But the solution came from an unexpected source. The next morning, Jake found a message waiting from Commander Xyloth requesting a meeting. When he arrived at her office, he found 3 other aliens waiting, a Vrax engineer, a Kelthan chemist, and a Silurian biologist. Foreman Morrison, Xyloth began. My staff has been watching your progress with interest. We've never seen the beast behave so calmly. Some of them have requested permission to assist your efforts. Jake looked at the 3 aliens. Assist how? The Vrax engineer stepped forward, his multiple arms gesturing. I've been studying your water delivery system. It's inefficient. With some modifications, I could increase your water pressure and flow rate by 300%. You could clean faster. The Kelthan chemist spoke next. The material coating the beast contains complex organic compounds. I've developed a solvent that could soften it without harming the creature's skin. It would make your brushing much more effective. The Silurian biologist added, and I've identified parasites in the material you're removing. Left untreated, they'll reinfest any areas you clean. I can provide treatments that are safe for the beast. Jake felt something shift in his chest. They wanted to help. After 2,000 years of giving up, other species were finally willing to try again because they'd seen humans refuse to quit. Commander, if they're willing to help, we'd be grateful to have them. Xyloth's breathing tubes fluttered in what Jake now recognized as approval. There's one condition. They must follow your protocols. No force, no rushing, no causing the beast distress. Agreed, Jake said immediately. By day 12, the team had expanded to 8 members. The Vrax engineer, whose name translated to something like Swift Mender, had modified their water system into something that could gently spray large areas. The Kelthan chemist, called Mex, provided solutions that made the hardened filth softer and easier to remove. And the Silurian biologist, whose name was simply Dr. Kell, monitored the beast's health and treated emerging skin conditions. The work accelerated dramatically. What had taken 3 hours to clean 1 square meter now took 30 minutes. The beast seemed to understand they were helping, remaining calm even when the work became more intensive. Some days Jake could have sworn it was actively. Day 18 brought a discovery that changed everything. Jake and his expanded team were working on the beast's midsection, carefully removing layers of compacted material from around its ribcage. The work had become almost routine. Apply Mex's solvent, wait 15 minutes, then gently brush away the softened filth. Repeat. The beast barely reacted anymore, sometimes appearing to doze while they worked. Maria was monitoring vital signs when her scanner emitted an unusual tone. She frowned, adjusted the settings, and scanned again. Jake, I'm getting strange readings from the chest cavity. Strange how? Jake moved to look at her display. There's a secondary rhythm. At first I thought it was just an echo of the primary heartbeat, but it's not synchronized. It's independent. Dr. Kell slithered closer, his serpentine body coiling as he examined the readings. A secondary cardiovascular system? That would be highly unusual. Or, Sarah said slowly, not a secondary system at all. The team fell silent. They all understood what Sarah was implying, but nobody wanted to say it out loud. Jake made a decision. We need to clean the chest area, right now. They worked with careful urgency, applying extra solvent and using gentle water spray to accelerate the process. The beast seemed to sense something had changed, remaining perfectly still as they cleared material from its broad chest. After 2 hours of intensive work, they'd removed enough to reveal the skin beneath. And there, clearly visible through the beast's translucent chest plates, were 2 distinct heartbeats. Mother of God, Frank whispered. It's pregnant. Maria's hands shook as she adjusted her scanner. Not pregnant. The development is too advanced. Jake, I think it's already given birth. Those are separate hearts, separate entities. Inside the mother? Tommy asked, confusion clear in his voice. Dr. Kell's medical training kicked in. Some species carry their young internally for extended periods after birth. A marsupial-like arrangement, but internal. If I'm reading these scans correctly, there are 2 juveniles, each approximately 2 meters long, residing in protected chambers within the mother's body. Jake felt his mind rearranging everything he thought he knew about this situation. 2,000 years. This creature has been carrying its babies for 2,000 years. Waiting, Maria said softly. Waiting for conditions to be safe enough to release them. The implications hit Jake like a physical blow. The beast wasn't just some dumb animal that had given up. It was a mother protecting its children in the only way it could. By keeping them inside, safe from a hostile environment, even if that meant enduring 2 millennia of suffering. The stress levels, Sarah said. That's why they've been so high. It's not just the filth and isolation. It's the constant physiological strain of maintaining 2 developing lives inside its body. And the behavioral observations, Dr. Kell added. Its cooperation with us, its lack of aggression. Maternal instinct. It knows it can't care for offspring in its current state, but it recognizes us as potential caregivers. Jake sat down hard on a clear patch of floor. They weren't just cleaning a neglected animal. They were helping a mother prepare a safe environment for her children. We need to tell the commander, he said finally. And we need to accelerate our timeline. If those juveniles are released before we've created a clean, safe environment, they could die, Maria finished. Or the mother's body could fail trying to sustain them much longer. The emergency meeting in Commander Zeloth's office included Jake's entire team, Dr. Kell and 3 council representatives who'd arrived on the morning transport. The discovery of the juveniles had elevated Bay 47 from a maintenance issue to a potential first contact situation. Let me understand this correctly. One of the council representatives, a tall Arxian with bioluminescent markings, said, "The creature we've been storing for 2,000 years is not only sentient enough to make complex decisions about offspring protection, but has been essentially holding its children in stasis waiting for safe conditions?" "That's our current theory," Dr. Kell confirmed. "The species appears to have an extremely sophisticated reproductive system that allows the mother to pause final development until environmental conditions are optimal. And you believe cleaning the mother will trigger the release of these juveniles?" "We believe creating a clean, safe environment will allow the mother to finally release them." "Yes," Maria said. "Her body is showing signs of strain. She's been holding them far longer than was probably intended." The council representative turned to Jake. "Foreman Morrison, you've accomplished in 18 days what our entire civilization failed to do in 2 millennia. What do you need to complete this task?" Jake had prepared for this question. More time, more resources, and more personnel. "We've cleaned maybe 15% of the mother's body. We need to clean the rest, prepare a proper nesting area, and establish food sources appropriate for juveniles. At current pace, we need at least 60 more days." "Approved," the representative said immediately. "Additionally, the council is upgrading this from a maintenance issue to a protected species initiative. Whatever you need, you'll have it. One more thing," Jake added. "We need to prepare for the possibility that the juveniles might be sapient." The room fell silent. Zeloth's breathing tubes went completely still. "Explain," the council representative said. "The mother's behavior shows intelligence beyond simple animal instinct, complex decision-making, long-term planning, the ability to recognize potential allies. If she's sapient, her children might be too. We need linguists, first contact specialists, educators, just in case." The representative's bioluminescence flickered thoughtfully. "I'll have a full first contact team here within the week. In the meantime, continue your excellent work, Foreman." As the meeting broke up, Commander Zeloth approached Jake privately. "You know what this means, don't you? If those juveniles are sapient, the council will have to answer for 2,000 years of neglect." "I know," Jake said, "but that's not my problem. My problem is making sure that Mother and her babies are safe, clean, and healthy. The galaxy is watching now, Foreman. You've turned an embarrassment into a potential miracle. I just treated an animal with respect. That's all." Zeloth's breathing tubes fluttered. "That's exactly the point. It took humans to teach us that lesson." Work in Bay 47 transformed overnight. The team expanded to 20 members working in shifts around the clock. The VRAX engineers installed a complete environmental control system. Health and chemists produced cleaning solutions in bulk. Silurian medical staff set up a complete veterinary facility. Species from across the station volunteered their time. The beast, whom Sarah had started calling Mara for reasons she couldn't quite explain, seemed to understand that something important was happening. She actively cooperated now, shifting positions to help the teams access difficult areas, remaining perfectly still during delicate cleaning around her chest cavity. By day 25, they'd cleaned 60% of Mara's body. The transformation was stunning. Where there had been a mountain of filth, there was now a magnificent creature, with pure white fur marked with silver striping. Her hide, once hidden, proved to be covered in beautiful scale patterns that shimmered in the light. She was graceful, elegant, and clearly built for some environment very different from a sterile cargo bay. Jake stood in the observation room one evening, watching Mara rest in her now clean environment. The medical scanners showed the 2 juveniles inside her, healthy and developing. Any day now, Mara would make the decision to release them. Maria joined him at the window. "Did you ever imagine it would be like this?" "Like what?" "That we'd discover she was a mother. That we'd become midwives for an unknown species. That the entire Galactic Council would be invested in the outcome." Jake shook his head. "I just thought we'd clean a dirty animal." "Shows what I knew." "You knew the important part," Maria said. "You knew that everything deserves care, regardless of how hopeless it looks." The first contact team arrived on day 27. Linguists, xenobiologists, cultural specialists, and diplomatic staff. They set up equipment in the observation room, preparing for any possible outcome. The entire galaxy, it seemed, was holding its breath. On day 29, as Jake's team was finishing the final sections of cleaning around Mara's tail, the beast made a sound they'd never heard before. A deep melodious call that resonated through the chamber and beyond, carrying through the station's corridors. Maria's scanner lit up with activity. "The juveniles. They're moving! Jake, I think she's getting ready." The team immediately evacuated Bay 47, sealing the door behind them. Through the transparent wall, they watched as Mara slowly stood for the first time in centuries. Her legs, now clean and healthy, supported her massive weight easily. She moved to the center of the chamber, where the team had prepared soft nesting materials. And then, with slow deliberation, she lowered herself down and began the process of releasing her children. The station's entire population crowded into observation areas, watching displays, doing whatever they could to witness this moment. 2,000 years of waiting, ended by a human foreman who'd simply refused to give up. Commander Zeloth stood next to Jake, all 6 of her arms tensed with anticipation. "Whatever happens next, Foreman Morrison, you've already changed how this galaxy thinks about compassion." The birth chamber opened along Mara's ventral surface, a natural seam that had been hidden beneath centuries of filth. Jake watched in amazement as the internal structure revealed itself to be far more sophisticated than anyone had imagined. This wasn't a simple pouch or cavity. It was an entire protected environment, complete with its own circulation systems and what appeared to be cushioned walls. 2 shapes emerged, slowly into Bay 47's carefully controlled environment. The juveniles were nothing like Jake had expected. Each was about 2 meters long, but instead of being miniature versions of their mother, they appeared almost translucent. Their white skin was so pure it seemed to glow, and through it Jake could see the suggestion of developing organs and bone structures. They moved with surprising grace, their legs surprisingly steady for newborns. "They're beautiful," Sarah breathed. But what happened next shocked everyone. The first juvenile, barely minutes old, turned its head toward the observation window. Its eyes, far larger and more developed than its mother's, focused with clear intelligence. And then it opened its mouth and made a sound, not a cry, not an animal noise. A sound with structure, with rhythm, with intent. "Oh my God," one of the linguists said, frantically adjusting equipment. "That's language. Primitive, but that's definitely linguistic structure." The second juvenile emerged fully, shook itself like a dog shedding water, and replied to its sibling, a different sound but equally structured. The 2 juveniles were communicating. Mara, exhausted but clearly alert, wrapped her body protectively around her children. She made her own sound, deeper and more complex, and both juveniles responded. The linguist equipment went wild with analysis. "It's a tonal language," the head linguist reported, her voice shaking with excitement. "Complex harmonic structures. This isn't just communication, this is sophisticated language. These beings are sapient." The implications crashed through the observation room like a wave. For 2,000 years, the Galactic Council had imprisoned a sapient being, had left a sentient mother to suffer in her own filth while she protected her unborn children. The political ramifications would be enormous, but Jake wasn't thinking about politics. He was thinking about Mara, about what she'd endured, about the strength it must have taken to survive and protect her children through 2 millennia of neglect. Commander Zeloth's voice cut through the chaos. "Someone needs to respond. If they're trying to communicate, we need to acknowledge them." The linguists looked at each other helplessly. "We need weeks to develop even basic translation. We can't just—" "I'll go," Jake said. Every eye in the room turned to him. "Absolutely not," Zeloth said firmly. "We have protocols for first contact with sapient species. We have trained diplomats." "Who will terrify her?" Jake interrupted. "Mara knows me, knows my team. We've spent nearly a month building trust with her. If anyone goes in there, it should be someone she recognizes as safe." "The juveniles don't know you," the council representative pointed out. "But their mother does, and if she trusts us, they'll learn to trust us." Maria stepped forward. "He's right. I'm reading elevated stress from Mara. She's confused about why we've all disappeared. She's probably wondering if we're rejecting her children, which, given her 2,000-year experience with our species, she has every reason to believe," Dr. Kell added quietly. The council representative considered for a long moment. "Very well, Foreman Morrison. But you won't go alone. You'll take a full medical team, the head linguist, and I'm coming with you. Respectfully, sir, I think fewer people would be better. This is not negotiable. If these beings are sapient, their first extended contact with other sapient species needs to include official council presence. We're going to do this right, even if we're 2,000 years late." 20 minutes later, Jake led a group of 7 into Bay 47. Besides himself, the team included Maria with medical equipment, Dr. Kell, the head linguist, a Vexian named Chorus, and 3 council officials including the Arxian representative. Everyone moved slowly, carefully, following Jake's lead. Mara's head lifted as the door opened, her eyes clearer and brighter now that she was clean and healthy, fixed on Jake. She made a soft sound, almost questioning. "It's okay, Mara," Jake said softly. "We're here. We didn't abandon you." The juveniles, still nestled against their mother, watched the approaching group with intense curiosity. Their large eyes tracked every movement. As Jake got closer, the first juvenile made that structured sound again. Chorus activated her translation equipment. The linguistic pattern is consistent with a question. I believe it's asking for identification or classification. "It's asking who we are," Maria translated into simpler terms. Jake knelt down about 3 meters from Mara's head. He was close enough to reach out and touch her. Close enough that she could easily hurt him if she chose, but he knew she wouldn't. "My name is Jake," he said clearly. "Jake Morrison, human. I've been helping your mother get clean and healthy. These are my friends. We're here to help you too." The juvenile made another sound. Chorus's equipment chimed analysis. "Repetition of your sound patterns. It's learning." It just tried to say Jake. The second juvenile, braver or perhaps more curious, detached from its mother and took 3 wobbling steps toward Jake. Mara tensed, but didn't stop it. The juvenile approached until it was less than a meter away, then extended its neck and sniffed at Jake with obvious interest. Jake remained perfectly still, letting the juvenile investigate. After a moment, the creature made a sound that was unmistakably pleased. Then it did something that would later be replayed billions of times across the galaxy. It bumped its head gently against Jake's chest, like a cat seeking affection. Jake slowly raised one hand and placed it on the juvenile's head. The skin was warm, soft, with a texture like fine velvet. "Hello there, little one. Welcome to the galaxy." The juvenile made a trilling sound that needed no translation. It was happy. Mara watched this exchange, and then she did something equally remarkable. She made a long, complex sound directed at the council representative. Chorus's equipment struggled with the analysis, but the meaning was clear enough. "She's asking if her children are safe," Chorus reported. She wants to know if they'll be protected. The Arxian representative stepped forward, his bioluminescence pulsing in patterns that Jake recognized as emotional response. I cannot speak for the crimes of the past. I cannot undo 2,000 years of suffering. But I swear to you on my life and the honor of the Galactic Council, your children will be protected. They will be valued. They will be given everything they need to thrive. Mara seemed to understand the intent if not the specific words. She lowered her massive head and made a sound that resonated with something like relief. The second juvenile, emboldened by its sibling's success, approached Maria. She knelt down, offering her hand. The juvenile sniffed it, then made an approving sound and pressed against her leg. They're so trusting, Maria whispered, tears running down her face. After everything we did to their mother, they still trust us. Children, Dr. Kell observed, are often wiser than their elders. They judge beings by present actions, not past crimes. Over the next several hours, the team worked to ensure Mara and her children had everything they needed. Food was brought, specially prepared based on analysis of Mara's nutritional requirements, but modified for juvenile metabolism. Water was provided in shallow dishes that the young ones could easily access. Soft nesting materials were arranged for comfort. The juveniles, whom Jake privately named Hope and Nova, proved to be remarkably intelligent. Within hours, they'd begun responding to their names. Within a day, they'd learned to recognize individual team members and had started attempting to mimic simple words. The linguists worked around the clock to establish basic translation, aided by the juveniles' rapid learning and Mara's patient explanations. By the end of the first week, basic communication was possible. And that's when the revelations really began. Mara's species, it turned out, was called the Lyranth. They'd been an ancient spacefaring civilization long before the current Galactic Council existed. Their homeworld had been destroyed in a cataclysm 3,000 years ago. Mara had been part of an evacuation ship carrying precious cargo, pregnant females of the species, each one carrying the genetic diversity needed to rebuild their civilization. Her ship had been damaged. Life support had failed. Everyone else had died. But Mara's unique physiology had allowed her to enter a form of hibernation, while keeping her unborn children in stasis. She drifted for centuries before being found by council ships and mistaken for a simple animal. For 2,000 years, Hope communicated through the translation system, her young voice breaking with emotion. Mother waited. Mother protected. Mother believed someone would come who cared. And someone did come, Nova added, looking at Jake with her large, intelligent eyes. The humans came. The story spread through the galaxy like wildfire. The tale of Mara the Lyranth, who'd endured 2 millennia of suffering to protect her children. The tale of a human foreman who'd refused to accept that anything was hopeless. The tale of how compassion and persistence could achieve what technology and force could not. Keras 9, once a forgotten station at the edge of nowhere, became the most famous location in the galaxy. Delegations arrived from hundreds of worlds, all wanting to meet. 6 months after Hope and Nova's emergence, Keras 9 had been transformed beyond recognition. Bathe 47 was no longer a containment cell, but a carefully designed habitat that met Lyranth needs while providing educational opportunities for the rapidly growing juveniles. The station itself had become the Galactic Center for Interspecies Compassion, housing representatives from over 200 worlds who came to study what had happened and learn from it. Jake Morrison sat in the expanded observation room, now fitted with comfortable seating and educational displays, watching Hope and Nova play. The juveniles had grown significantly, now almost 4 meters long, and their personalities had blossomed. Hope was cautious and analytical, always asking questions about how things worked. Nova was adventurous and artistic, filling data pads with drawings and musical compositions. Both were brilliant beyond any conventional measure of intelligence. They're requesting university access, Maria said, joining Jake with 2 cups of actual coffee, shipped at great expense from Earth. Multiple institutions across the galaxy want to offer them education packages. They're 6 months old, Jake pointed out. They're also learning at a rate that makes most adult sapients look slow. The linguists estimate they've mastered 17 languages. Hope just submitted a paper on theoretical physics that has council scientists confused and impressed. And Nova's musical compositions are being performed in concert halls across 3 sectors. Jake sipped his coffee and smiled. Mara must be proud. She is, but also worried. She's expressed concern about them growing up too fast, missing childhood. They're the only Lyranth children in the entire galaxy, Jake said. They don't have much choice but to be extraordinary. As if summoned by the conversation, Mara herself entered the observation area. She'd learned to navigate the station's corridors, and while her size meant some areas remained inaccessible, the station had been modified to accommodate her whenever possible. She'd become something of a celebrity, but she bore it with patient grace. "Hello, Jake," she said in English, her deep voice resonating through translation equipment worn around her neck. "Thank you for watching my children." "Always a pleasure," Jake replied. He'd learned enough Lyranth to hold basic conversations, but Mara had become remarkably fluent in several galactic standard languages. "Maria says they're ready for advanced education." Mara settled herself down, her massive body graceful despite its size. "I know they're eager to learn, to contribute, but I remember what it was like to lose my world, my people, my entire civilization. I want them to have time to simply be young." "Then tell the universities no," Jake said simply. "Your children, your decision. But they could help so many species with their knowledge." "Mara," Jake interrupted gently, "you spent 2,000 years sacrificing for your children. You don't have to keep sacrificing now. They can learn and grow at their own pace. The galaxy will wait." Mara's large eyes focused on Jake with an expression he'd come to recognize as affection. "This is why the humans succeeded where others failed. You understand that care means more than just meeting physical needs." Inside the habitat, Hope had noticed her mother's arrival and came bounding over, her movements still holding some juvenile clumsiness despite her size. "Mother, Jake, Nova and I have been working on something. May we show you?" "Of course," Mara replied. Nova joined her sister, and together they began to demonstrate what they'd created. A holographic display system that combined sound and light in ways that allowed them to visualize Lyranth history and culture. Images filled the air, cities that had existed 3,000 years ago, ships that had sailed between stars, a civilization rich with art and science and beauty. "We've been reconstructing our history from Mother's memories," Hope explained. "We want to preserve it so that someday when there are more Lyranth, they'll know where they came from." Jake felt a lump in his throat. These children, barely half a year old, were already working to preserve and rebuild their entire species' legacy. "It's beautiful," he managed to say. "We're calling it the Lyranth Archives," Nova added, "and we want to share it with the galaxy. So many species have lost pieces of their history. We thought maybe our methods could help others recover what they've lost." Mara made a sound of pride and love. "My brilliant children." Over the following months, the Lyranth Archives project grew into something remarkable. Hope and Nova, working with historians and archivists from across the galaxy, developed techniques for recovering and preserving endangered cultural knowledge. Species that had suffered disasters, wars, or simple neglect found ways to reconstruct their lost heritage. And it all traced back to a human foreman who'd refused to accept that anything was beyond saving. Jake found himself in demand as a speaker, invited to conferences and symposiums across the galaxy. Everyone wanted to know the secret of how he'd succeeded. He always gave the same answer. There was no secret. Just patience, respect, and the refusal to give up. But that answer, simple as it was, changed how countless species approached problems. The human method, as it became known, spread through the galaxy. Slow, patient, compassionate problem-solving that valued individuals over efficiency. Keras 9's maintenance teams reported a 300% increase in efficiency, not because they worked faster, but because they worked better. Workers who felt valued and respected performed better. Problems that had been ignored for years were solved because someone finally bothered to look past the surface difficulties. Commander Ziloth, in her office reviewing quarterly reports, shook her head in amazement. "We spent 2,000 years ignoring our biggest problem, and humans solved it in a month. Now we're the most efficient station in the sector. How is that possible?" "Because," her assistant Rix replied, "the humans taught us to care." 1 year after Jake's arrival, the Galactic Council held a formal ceremony on Keras 9. Representatives from every member species attended, including many who'd helped in the latter stages of Mara's care. The observation room had been converted into a grand hall, capable of holding thousands of beings. Jake stood uncomfortably in a formal uniform that Maria had insisted he wear. His team stood with him, Maria, Tommy, Sarah, and Frank, along with Swiftmender, Max, and Dr. Kell. Behind them, visible through the transparent wall, Mara watched with Hope and Nova, the Arxian Council representative, who'd become a friend over the past year, stepped forward to speak. For 2,000 years we failed. We failed in compassion, in patience, in simple decency. We looked at a suffering being and decided it was too difficult to help. We are not proud of this history. The hall fell silent. But 1 year ago, a human foreman looked at that same situation and saw not impossibility, but opportunity. He saw not a monster, but a mother. He saw not a lost cause, but a being worthy of care. And in seeing differently, he changed everything. The representative turned to Jake. Foreman Jake Morrison, on behalf of the Galactic Council and all species represented here, we thank you. We thank you for showing us what we should have been all along. We thank you for saving not just Mara and her children, but for saving our souls. The hall erupted in sounds of approval from hundreds of different species. Jake felt his face flush with embarrassment. He'd just done his job, hadn't he? Additionally, the representative continued, the Council has established the Morrison Initiative, a galaxy-wide program dedicated to identifying and solving long-ignored problems through patience, compassion, and persistent care. Every member species will contribute resources, and Foreman Morrison has agreed to serve as senior advisor. That was news to Jake. He shot a look at Maria, who smiled innocently. I may have accepted on your behalf, she admitted quietly. You were going to say yes anyway. Jake sighed, but he was smiling. She was right. After the ceremony, after the congratulations and speeches and formal proceedings, Jake found himself alone with Mara in Bay 47. Hope and Nova had gone off with some young Vrax engineers to demonstrate their latest archival techniques. The space was quiet, peaceful. Thank you, Jake, Mara said softly. Not just for cleaning me, though, that was certainly needed. Thank you for believing I was worth the effort. You were always worth it, Jake replied. Every being is. Not every being would have seen that. For 2,000 years I waited. Some days I thought about giving up, letting go, accepting that my children would never have a chance to live. But something always stopped me. What was that? Hope, Mara said simply. The belief that somewhere, somehow, there were beings who would care. I held on because I believed against all evidence that compassion still existed in the universe. And you were right. I was right about you, about humans. Your species sees worth in everything, befriends anything, refuses to give up on anyone. Do you know what a precious gift that is? Jake thought about Earth, about humanity's strange tendency to domesticate wild animals, to nurse injured creatures back to health, to form emotional bonds with beings that probably shouldn't even register as important. It had always seemed like a quirk, maybe even a weakness, but maybe it was humanity's greatest strength. We just can't help ourselves, he said with a laugh. We see something suffering and we have to try to fix it. Never lose that, Mara said seriously. The galaxy needs it. We all need it. 2 years after the initial cleaning, Hope and Nova were now massive.